Hello, boys and girls. This is your host, Mr. Bedley, again for 4th grade Excel lesson 52. We're going to be learning about division today using 3-digit dividends. That would be the number right here, 3-digit dividend, and a 2-digit quotient. The quotient is the answer to a division problem. It would go right there. And we're going to have a little bit of regrouping and remainders in these types of problems. This is pretty tricky stuff for kids, so make sure you pay really close attention. If you don't get something, try watching that part again and getting it into your head. And if you still don't get it, be sure to ask for help when you're at school so that I can go over it with you again and help you out, because that's what I'm there for. And before we get started, let's go ahead and get a joke going. So today's joke is, what is the most hard-working part of the eye? What is the most hard-working part of the eye? You're going to have to stay tuned till later to find out the answer. So now into our lesson. We've got the problem 135 divided by 2. 135 divided by 2. So think about what that means. I'm going to take 135 of something. I'm going to split it into 2 equal groups. Okay, that's what division means. It's splitting it up into smaller groups. And so I've got some manipulatives here, some visual representation of the number 135. This big square here has 100 little tiny squares in it. So that's a 100 piece right there. That's a 100 block. And then these sticks right here represent our tens. We have 3 of those tens, and each one of these green pieces on the video, I know it's not green on your page, but each one of those has 10 different pieces in it. So that's 1, 2, 3 tens, or 30. You see that right there in the number. Here's the 100, 30, and then we have 5 individual little tiny blocks. That represents the number 5. Now, in all reality, if you counted each one of these little tiny squares, we would count 135 altogether right here. That's what that means. So how can I split this into 2 equal groups? Well, I can't really split the 100 into 2 equal groups without splitting it up altogether. And so I'm going to have to split that 100 into 10 tens. So each one of these columns right here going down that way is a 10, right? So like from here all the way down to here, that's 10, 20, 30, and so on until we get to 100. So I'm going to split this up into 10 tens. Kind of think of it like 10 $10 bills instead of one big $100 bill. Okay, and then I'm going to combine that with these 3 tens that I had before. So I've got 10 tens here and I've got 3 tens there. So that makes 13 tens altogether. If I split those into 2 equal groups, I can get 6 tens and 6 tens, which makes a total of 12 tens, right? But then I'm going to have 1 10 left over because there are 13 tens. It's the only way I can split that into 2 equal groups is to come up with 6 tens in each group. See, if I put 7 in each one of my 2 groups, then I'd have 14 tens, and that would be too many. 13 is an odd number, so I can only split it into 2 groups of 6 with 1 left over. And that's what they show you a picture of down here. Here's the tens all broken up, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tens right there in one group, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tens in the other group, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 that are right here that represent that 1 extra 10. And they take that 1 extra 10 and they split it up into a bunch of 1s right there. So now what are we left with? We have that 1 extra 10 with the 5 that were there originally. And so I've got that extra 10 with the 5, which makes a total of 15 of these 1s, right? 15 1s. And how can I split those 15 1s into 2 groups? Well, there would be 7 in each group. 7 plus 7 is equal to 14, and then there would be 1 left over. And they show you that by making this dotted line that goes around here. There's 7 1s. Here's another 7 1s right here, and then there's this guy that's left over at the end, and we call that the remainder. It's the leftover part of our division problem. You can see that written right there, remainder 1. Now, we do have an algorithm or a way of solving this without doing all of these little blocks. The blocks are there to help you to understand the meaning of what you're doing. It's not how we actually solve the problems on a daily basis. But you do need to understand what's actually happening when we split 135 into 2 groups. We're splitting it up just like I explained to you here. So how do we do this? Just the same as we've been doing the division before. We have 4 steps that we're going to go through: divide, multiply, subtract, and then bring down. So first I'm going to divide 135 divided by 2, and I don't want to do the whole number all at one time, so I'm going to start with maybe my hundreds, and I'm saying, what is 100 divided by 2? Well, I could divide that up and make it 50, but I can actually join that, as I showed you before, with the 3 tens and say I have 13 tens divided by 2, which would be 6 tens. 13 divided by 2 is 6. Okay, because 6 times 2, that's the next step, multiply. 6 times 2, which goes right there, is 12. And then I'm going to subtract 13 tens minus 12 tens, gives me 1 10 left over that's right there. And then I bring my 5 ones down to join with my 1 10, and I get 15 ones, right? 1 10, 5 ones, 15 wholes, or 15 ones. And then I'm going to say, well, I got to split those 15 ones into 2 groups. 15 divided by 2 is 7, because 7 times 2 is 14. That's as close as I can get to 15. And 15 minus 14 is equal to 1. And there's nothing that I can do with that. I can't divide 1 into 2. Well, I can, and it's a half. And we'll actually be learning how to do that later. But for right now, we're just going to say that I have 1 left over, or remainder 1. Don't forget to write that up here at the top as part of your answer. All right, now what we're going to do is try some problems by using our standard algorithm for this. Let's go through this first problem first. We have 944 divided by 4. So first I'm going to do the 900s divided by 4. And 900s divided by 4 would be 200s, because 200 times 4 is 800, or we put 8 down here. I can actually write 800 there if I want to, but those zeros are not going to do a whole lot for me, because I do 9 minus 8 is 1, and then 4 take away nothing is 4. And then I can have the 0 down there, but I've basically got 14 left here. 14 divided by 4, or 14 tens, because that 4 is in the tens place. So that's actually 14 tens divided by 4 is 3, because 3 times 4 is 12. And then we subtract and get 2 tens left over. We bring our ones down, and we have 24. And 24 divided by 4 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. Subtract and get 0. So I have remainder 0, but I don't write that there because there's nothing there. And then how do I check this? I take the answer, 236, that's the quotient, multiply it by the divisor. Yeah, the divisor. And the way I remember that, I always get mixed up, but this is the dividend because it's on the n side, dividend on the n side, and this is the divisor, which has an O towards the end, which is on the outside. And then we do 236 times 4, this number here, and we get 944, which is the same as that, and so we feel comfortable about our answer. Okay, let's go ahead and do number 2 together. I'm going to do 1 divided by 3, which is 100 divided by 3. Can't really do 1 divided by 3, so I'm going to join that together with the 9 and say it's 19 tens divided by 3. Well, what's 19 tens divided by 3? That would be 6, right? Or 60. 60 times 3 is 180. I can stick that. I kind of like putting that 0 down there just so you can totally understand what you're doing. This is really the number 60 because it's in the tens place. Make sure you do actually write that in the tens place, and you should be writing this right now as we're doing this. 60 times 3 is 180, and then I subtract Subtract here, and I get 2 and 1. And then I now have the number 12 divided by 3, which of course is 4. And 4 times 3 is 12. You're going to write that step there. And I've got nothing left over at the end. Now we're going to check it. Go ahead and write 192 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 9 times 3 is 20. Whoa. What did I do here? Oh, I'm multiplying. Whoopsie. Okay, Mr. Bedley made a mistake. If you started doing that, you can erase that with me, because that is wrong. I am not thinking straight there. Okay, we're actually doing 64 times 3, right? Okay, 4 times 3 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 3 is 18 plus 1 is 19. All right, and you notice as I was doing that, it wasn't coming out, so I all of a sudden it hit me. I'm like, I'm doing this wrong. You are going to make mistakes like that too, and that's what you want to do, is really pay attention to what you're doing and notice when you make mistakes. Okay, why don't you go ahead and try number 3 on your own. Pause the video, just do number 3. Turn it back on after you solved it so you can see how I do it. All right, so you should have already done number 3, and watch how I do this, and any mistakes you make, fix them on your paper. So I'm doing 100 divided by 4. Can't really do that. I can, but I'm going to make it easier by joining 3 tens with that and say 13 tens divided by 4. And that is going to be 3, and that 3 goes right above the other 3, because 3 times 4, or 30 times 4, is 120, right? And then I subtract 138 minus 120, and I get 18. And then I do division again here to see what 18 divided by 4 is. 18 divided by, let's see, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Okay, so it goes up to 16 before it goes over 18, right? So 4 times 4 is 16, and I subtract and get 2. And so I have a remainder of 2. Now, I didn't show you how to add the remainder on, so hopefully you know how to do that. And if not, we'll learn right now. But we're going to do 34 times 4, this number up here, times that's the quotient, times the divisor. 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. And that says 136, this says 138. Well, so what's wrong here? I have to add the remainder on and bring it up to 138. And that does match up right there, so I can feel confident with my answer. All right, now if you are feeling pretty good about this, if you got that one right, go ahead and do 4 and 5. If you got it wrong, why don't you just do 4, and then watch me do 4, and then pause the video again and do number 5. Just do one at a time, and that way you can get a little bit better at it. But here we go. 5 times 1. Oh, go ahead and have it done. Make sure you've got it done now before you watch me do it. 1 divided by 5, 100 divided by 5. Well, that's 20, but I don't want to really stick a 20 up there. I want to join that 100 with the 80 and do 180 divided by 5. And so what I'm really thinking of is 18 divided by 5. And that would be 3, or 30. And 3 times 5 is 15. I'm going to subtract and get, I can put a 0 in there too, because it's really 30 times 5, which is 150. I get 30 down there. And then I'm doing 30 divided by 5, which is 6. And 6 times 5 is 30. Subtract. Hopefully yours is neater than mine with my little stylus here. And I got no remainder, so I don't put a remainder up there. Then I do 36 times 5 to check it. 6 times 5 is 30, carry the 3. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 3 is 18. All right, hopefully you've already done number 5 here. Don't just copy what I'm doing. You won't learn anything. And you're going to be doing these for a long time to come, so you got to learn it. 2 into 1, no, or 100. I'm going to join that with the 7 to say 17 divided by 2, or 170 divided by 2. And that is 8, right? Because, or 80. 8 times 2 is 16. So 80 times 2 is 160. And then I have 11 when I subtract. 11 divided by 2 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. And I get 1 left over, or a remainder of 1. Then you're going to do 85 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 1 is 17, and then I have to add the remainder on. 171 matches up. All right, you got some basic math fact practice here at the end, and make sure you pause the video, do these on your own. And I've noticed that some of you lately have not been pausing the video, doing these, and then checking them. You got to go back and check and see if you got them right. Any of them that you got wrong, you should be erasing and fixing it, making it the right answer. And the answer to our joke that I started by telling you today is what is the most intelligent part, or the hardworking part of the eye is, of course, the pupil. And if you don't get that joke, pupil is another word for a student. So yes, you guys are all pupils, and you have pupils. And oh, here comes the answers. There you go. Pause the video because it's going to shut off, and check your answers and change any of them that you got wrong.